But we have Mr. Bill Rhine in with us this evening, and we had a little cookout thing. I guess I was calling it a cookout, but it was for veterans.
It's our Medal of Honor dinner. We do it twice a year.
Yeah.
We do that dinner twice a year. Charlotte Motor Speedway has a neat program that they allow any of the Medal of Honor recipients who want to come to the race, enjoy the show. Doesn't cost them anything. So the Saturday evening after the Xfinity race, any of the Medal of Honor recipients in town, military members with their group, families, and some others all come out for a big dinner and cookout and tour of the farm, and it's. I think this is the 7th year we've done it. It's a hoot.
Okay, yeah, that was good. That was very cool. That was Mr. Bill Rhine. So we did over at Rhine Enterprises. That was a good time, man. You always you overdo yourself. That's what I said to you. The food was great, and you had an ice cream bar.
Yeah, we tried that for the first time this event, and to say it was a hit is an understatement.
Yes.
I spent the second half of the night dishing out ice cream.
Oh, yes. So you did. You were busy,
it was good,
man.
though.
Your wife did a great job, too, helping you prepare for that.
Yes.
And now that we're good with all that, let's hear Bill's story. Tell us where you started, Bill.
Oh, man. All the way back then, huh?
Yes.
So born and raised in South Miami, Florida.
Nice.
And yes and no. Back then there was no racing in Miami, Florida. Now we have Homestead Speedway, but back then there was nothing.
Nothing.
There was alligators.
And still are.
About it, yes. So, racing became a pretty cool commodity when you could get around it. I don't think I went to my first NASCAR race till I was, I had to be at least, I think, 15 years old. Because the closest one was Daytona. And I made a trip to the Firecracker 400 one time with some friends, and it was like, wow, and this is,
What was the closest track down there? Well, there was Lakeland, probably.
Well, as far as short tracks, we had Hialeah.
Okay.
But as far as NASCAR tracks, Daytona was it.
Oh.
And that was still 5.5 hour ride north.
Okay.
So, and my parents weren't race fans, so that wasn't.
I was going to say
wasn't on the radar.
Yeah, 15 is hard to get back and forth.
Yeah. But got out of high school, left Florida, went to Georgia to go racing, left Georgia to go racing in South Carolina, and then there North Carolina, and I've been in North Carolina ever since. I was actually on a Busch Grand National team 18, 19 years old, 18 years old, I think.
Wow.
And just, when your family's not into it, the thought of being a driver goes out the window, so that the second best option is learn everything you can as fast as you can, and you'll be involved to some level.
Right.
And that's what we did. That's how we did it. And it's been a hoot.
Yeah.
It's been hard, but it's been a hoot.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, you were around at a time when Adam Petty and, I guess you were on Adam Petty's team. Right?
Yeah, the rookie year in 1999. And I'll tell you, to this day, I haven't met a race car driver / person as good as he was. A person, a driver, just everything about him was unbelievable. I tell people that he's the best of Richard, Kyle, and Lee all put in one package.
Yeah.
And that was the coolest place I've been. Liked Ricky Cravens, learned a lot from Ricky Cravens. I was there before Adam Petty's. That was a great learning environment. Tough place to work, but a great learning environment. But Adam was he was just a hoot. And I'll tell you a funny story. In the little over a year that I was there, if you went to dinner or lunch with Adam Petty, he would not let you buy a meal. Didn't matter if there was 10 of the crew that went or 2 of us that went. We would fight him for the check. He'd never ever let anybody pay for a meal. He was something else.
Yeah.
Unfortunate what happened, but I'm glad I got to be a small part of that. So
yeah. So I was a jackman for Kyle in '96, and Adam, and I traveled in '95. So Adam would come around quite a bit, and because he was very interested in racing. I don't know how he was young, and he would ask me. I remember specifically him asking me. We're sitting there on pit wall, and so he asked me, "How is it like? What is it like being a jackman? And what got you interested in doing that?" He was very interested in me, and then I would say, "What is it like being the grandson of the king?" Somebody hasn't made, but he was very humble that way.
He was, and that's one of the things that he always can't. He was a very shy person. And I think some of the fans, they would see that and they're like, oh, that, he's Richard's grandson. He's a little stuck up. He won't talk to us. No, he's probably just scared of you, Yeah. But once you got to know him, he was, like I said, the greatest person we've ever worked with in racing.
Always had that smile.
Always.
Big smile.
Always.
Yeah. Last time I saw him was coming out of the bathroom at Talladega, and I was headed that way, and he's kind of like zipping up, and they got that big smile on his face,
Yeah.
Yeah. So after Adam Petty, after that, where did you go to work from there?
That's when I decided I was going to open my own company. I was going to try to do something on my own for a bit, start building the show cars or marketing vehicles. I had seen some companies do some work that I thought was subpar, we'll say. And I'm like, I could do the same thing, make a hell of a lot nicer product. And for the same money and make good money doing this. So we kind of rolled into that. That got interrupted. And actually, when I started the company, I still was helping Hank Parker Jr. out in the Busch Series. I was going to races with him and changing tires to still be involved. And then in 2002, I went to help Billy Ballou with it was at the time the Dickies 15 truck. Okay. He needed some help, had some team members walk out, had some sponsor troubles, and so I went in and helped him finish the season and crew chief that truck. I was the youngest crew chief in the Craftsman Truck Series in 2002.
Okay.
And that was another great learning experience. And I like Billy Ballou. Billy Ballou is one of the few owners you'd run into that whatever you gave him to go racing, he would spend more than that. He wouldn't hide any of it. He wouldn't put any in his back pocket. He wanted to win races. He wanted to call his little son at 10:30 at night and say, "Turn on the TV, Daddy's in victory lane."
Gotcha.
And he got to do that with Kyle Busch when Kyle came in with a Ditech deal.
Yeah.
That was a really cool, special time for them. So
it must have been around 2001. I would always go over and talk to Hank Parker, and I would say I was building engines for Carl Wagner for that 1 year, and I was just doing the Busch Series that year. So I would go over and say, "Hey, you want to get engines from us?" So I'm sure I saw you at the track quite a bit for that. That was my farewell tour anyway.
Was that the Marines deal, the 53 car sponsored by the Marines in the Busch Series? That's when I was there.
Yeah, I remember that car.
Okay.
Yeah, but he also had was it like GNC or something one year? I don't remember. Something like that. Another year, but yeah. And then I was done after that. Then I started working at Bill Davis Racing, and then no more going to the racetrack.
Yay!
Unless they sent me. Yeah. Years later they would send me, but So whenever you got done with that year, 2002, you were the Truck Series.
Yeah,
crew chief.
Billy asked me to stay the next year, and I didn't because the business was starting to pick up again, and I wanted to really give that a real shot and see how it went. And I guess it's been a couple years now, and we're still doing it. So we did something right.
Yeah, you did good. I mean, that's that. And you're probably younger than me, but you've already. It's like I've always had aspirations of doing kind of what you're doing, but you must have a lot more focus than I do.
I don't watch television. I don't do the whole smartphone and internet thing. It's funny, people give me a hard time because I still run 3 companies in a nonprofit with a flip phone. Yes. Toyota has offered to buy me a smartphone if I would use it. I have declined.
Yeah. I got 3 smartphones.
Yeah. Well, good. You got one for me then, so I don't have to get one.
Yes.
I like to be busy. I like to build. Whether it's the metal ships you saw or the vintage cars or the Toyota projects, I enjoy building and designing stuff still every day. People get mad. They're like, "Well, we called you. You didn't answer the phone." Yeah, I check the phone 3 times a day. I'm in the shop every day, still hands-on, assembling, building, whatever. I still enjoy that.
Yeah. Well, you can look at the intricacy or whatever of the ships you put together, and it's like, man, that's amazing. The detail, and then to hear you say the other day that you do all of that yourself. That's what was amazing too. I didn't realize that because I was like, okay, well, you do have some people that help you, but you do that on your own.
Well, and with the large scale model ships, I don't use any CNC equipment. I don't use the mills and lathes. Everything is hand cut, hand built. I take that out of the equation because anybody can hit a button on a computer nowadays and build something.
Yeah, right.
And I don't want them built that way.
See, I would have thought at least a mill or a lathe. at least.
Nope.
Gosh. All right. So
we use the poor man's lathe. If we have to get something perfect, we stick it in a drill,
Yes.
tighten the chuck, and grind it while we're spinning the drill.
Right.
For the ships, anyway. Not for the race cars, but for the little metal ships. Yeah.
Man, that's amazing. So I'll have to post some pictures of that. But so many things we could go into, and we're going to try to cover them all tonight. But it's you do hey Will, call the other number. So Will Cronkrite has that. Speaking of him, I was going to mention Mr. Bill Blair still has a flip phone too.
Yes.
They all have similar phones.
Yes.
But Will has the regular phone, and we changed his number. We put the station number in, and we put my mobile number in two different whatever. So that
in Will's phone, yeah.
Yeah. So so that's the deal. he's calling myself.
Will Cronkrite is great.
Oh,
He
gosh.
is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's for sure.
When we didn't know him before we found his old car, so into the restoration stuff we do, we're unofficially the world leader in vintage stock car restorations. We have cars in 13 different countries.
Yeah.
We have a private collection that's pretty spectacular.
Hey, hold on one second.
Go ahead.
Hey, Will, call that other number, okay? Oh, you did? Okay, call it again. I'll look this time. Sorry, I was watching All right, so we got Bill Rhine in here with us, and we got Will Cronkrite on the phone.
Listen, guys, I just wanted to call and give props to my good friend Bill Rhine. I consider him the history and detail king of NASCAR's golden era of stock car racing, and the restorer extraordinaire, talents beyond belief, many to pick from.
That's a big deal coming from you, and I really appreciate it because I've seen some of the stuff you've restored and some of the awards that you've received for some of your restorations. So thank you, Will. That's huge.
Well, I'm a big fan of yours, and you know that. I certainly enjoyed the dinner we had the other night and the time I got to spend with those Hall of Medal of Honor winners. I appreciate what you do for those folks.
No, it's good fun. We do it for them, but we get as much out of it, if not more, than they do. And it really works out that way.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed it, and I've certainly appreciated the trips I've got to go down to the farm. I'm going to just talk here for a minute. I got to go. I got to run into town take care of a couple of details, but I just wanted to let you guys know I was watching, and I'm impressed with my friend Bill Rhine. Y'all take good care of him this evening. I'm going to head out of here, guys. I got a project I need to take care of, and I'll get a hold of you gentlemen later. Have a good evening, guys. Nice to talk to you, Bill.
Have a great one.
Thank you, Will. Talk to you soon.
Later, guys.
See you, buddy.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, so he's in a hurry. He's always in a hurry.
He's always in a hurry.
And he's what? He's 80, 83 maybe.
He doesn't understand
like
retirement
at
all.
80.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So
writing books. Right now he's writing his second book.
Yes.
Selling his first book, writing the next book, and he's always doing something.
Mm-hmm.
His mind never stops.
Yeah.
We were working on a project on the side, and he came in one day and just kind of looked down the side what we were doing. He comes back 2 days later with all these drawings and diagrams. Hey, you know what I was thinking?
Yeah.
And we're going, and it's like, that actually would help what we're trying to do here.
Wow.
So he never stops thinking. He is a brilliant man. And I don't know if he told you when he was on the show, because he's kind of humble too. I believe it was one of the Petties that told him one day that they were really thrilled that he never got big sponsorship because they were afraid of him. Will was, there's things that Cronkrite was doing in the early 80s that Cup teams didn't start doing regularly till the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. He was twisting chassis. He was way ahead of his game.
Yeah. Always thinking, like you said. It's getting late in the evening, close to 7:30. It's actually close to Will Cronkrite's bedtime.
Yes, it is.
So that's why he was in such a hurry to get out. He has to go into town and get back real quick. Yes. And I talked to Mr. Bill Blair today. Always a treat to talk to him. And we set a record. I think I was only on the phone with him for 5 minutes.
That's impossible.
Wow. Yes, it is. It's like, man, that's it. All right, well, good. And it sounded like they were headed out somewhere, but anyway.
The problem is when you talk to Bill Blair on the phone, it's okay that it's a 20 or 30 or 40-minute call because you're getting tons of information that, the history, he's his own racing,
encyclopedia.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
And
I've told him before, when I'm talking to him on the phone, I'll grab my other phone sometimes and I'll record what he's saying just because it's such great information that nobody else knows. Probably nobody else knows this stuff, that the person sitting in seat number 5 spilled their Coke whenever his dad was passing by,
Yes.
That kind of stuff. So I like to document every bit of it.
Yeah. He's one of the few that hadn't forgotten anything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, him, Les Bars, Richie Bars, Tex Powell, there's still some there's still some out there. Waddell's still, he still remembers tons and tons of the racing stories and events, and they're a neat group.
Hopefully he's watching. I sent him the link earlier and had already told him you were going to be on the show. So that was good. That's when he said, well, tell him I said hello.
Yeah.
And I did.
We love him to death. He is fantastic. When they told us he was going to get inducted into the Hall of Fame, they needed a car. We have the 83 Flatback Monty, and he called me and he's like, do you mind if we borrow that and put it in the Hall of Fame? I'm like, take it. Absolutely, you guys can have it. Take it. So that was really cool. And then in return, we didn't expect this. He invited Tiff and I to the award ceremony with him, so got to go experience that with his family and just the whole group. Just exceptional people. Exceptional people.
Yeah.
So
I'll bet so.
Enjoyed it.
You ever go to the eye doctor and then they put the thing in front of your eye that has all the little holes in it, and then you can see better?
I'm not the guy to ask that. I hadn't been to the doctor in probably 9 years. I don't go.
You're still young.
Yeah.
Well, and that falls on what Will Cronkrite was saying about you, with you having so much knowledge and so much skill, right? And that you can actually harness in and do things. Leonard Wood is another one, but Leonard Wood's getting up there in age, so it's almost a dying art in a way.
And I'll actually agree with that, because the Leonard Woods, the Kenny Thompsons, the Will Cronkites, they are all getting up there in age. And those were the guys who could build anything with nothing. And if they had nothing and nothing, they could think it up and then build it. And the kids nowadays, with the business and building the show cars and the marketing stuff and restoring the old cars, we're having a difficult time finding kids nowadays that want to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blame it on television, but they come in to the shop as an intern, and for lack of a better explanation, they say, I want to build motors right now. Well, you can't build motors if you can't take motors apart. And if you can't build motors if you don't know how to clean each part properly. And they want to build motors the second they walk in the door. They want to hang bodies the second they walk in the door. Well, you can't hang a body if you can't make a crush panel, if you can't drill a straight hole. So it's there's a lot of that. And we had an internship program. We actually kiboshed it because we got rid of a lot of kids real quick.
Oh, yeah. Kenny Thompson, KT, many names, but they're all legendary.
Dad.
True. Yeah.
There's not 5 guys in the world that can do the scope of work he can do. I'd tell anybody that.
And if I'm not mistaken, when we went to the shop, he made those GTs from just a picture. He didn't have the blueprints. He didn't have anything, from what my understanding is. I could be wrong.
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure about that. That's a discrepancy on whether he did it off the picture or the blueprint. I guess I could have asked him there. But
either way, he still did it by hand.
Yeah.
Yep.
He made everything for him because they didn't have one to go off of, I guess was pretty much the deal.
I'll tell you a funny story about Kenny. The first time I ever met him, I wander in his shop behind the house, and he was finishing up splining an axle. So he had this fixture in the drill press, and he had this special cutter in the head of the drill press, and he was making a cut, pulling it back, rotating it so many degrees, making another cut, pulling it back, rotating so many degrees, make another cut. And I stayed back for a minute and let him finish what he was doing, because he was making his last couple cuts. And he got done and he unclamped it. He says, well, if we did everything right, it should fit. And he grabbed the other side of the spline and he stuck that thing in, it went whoop, 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 just perfect. And he's like, well, that's a good one. And he set it aside, and I was just like,
Yeah, he's got some good jokes. He's got a good humor.
He's pretty special.
Yeah.
Tell you what. Yeah.
Well, that's one of those things that can be very difficult to make. So when you make, and then it's got to be precise for the most part. So
I've joked with some friends of mine, some younger friends who are new engineers, and I'm like, if you can't hand make a ring and pinion, you shouldn't be an engineer. It's
Right.
great to be able to go to computer and draw a circle and figure out by the computer I need 13 teeth or 27 teeth or whatever. Hit a button, it throws them in there, and you send it off to get it plastic printed. Those guys back in Kenny's day in the beginning, they would actually figure out how many degrees do I need to lay this over? How thick does a piece of round need to be? And then how many 13.2 degrees do I need to rotate it every time I make a cut to make this work? And that's a skill that unfortunately is I don't feel is going to be around much longer.
Yeah.
And that's sad because those are true builders.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Hey there. Go ahead, caller. Who we had on the line with us?
Well, it's what it was. I've been trying to call you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, like I was just explaining to everybody, I saw it blinking, but I couldn't answer because it would have just cut Kenny off, and we can't do two lines at the same time. But definitely glad to have you on the line with us. You know who we got as our guest, right?
Oh, yeah. Bill Rhine?
Yes, sir. How are you?
Good. How's Bill?
We are really good, super busy, and if we're not running around with our head on fire, we're not happy. So we're really happy right now.
Well, you've got a lot going on in that place you operate, all the show cars.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year with the changeover to Gen 7 and then the Air Titan changeover and just everything kind of hit at once. The truck body changed last year, so yeah, we've been and we believe it or not, I think we've done 4 vintage restorations this year in the middle of all that. So yeah,
Wow,
it's been good, really good.
Hey, so Waddell, I saw that the gray Ghost we were talking about.
right?
I believe I know where it is. Maybe Bill can tell us.
So
Yeah, Bill's got it all figured out.
no, that one we have that one back from California. It came. It was in the Hall of Fame when they inducted Buddy, which was really cool.
Right. Yeah, I
so
wanted it, and everybody talked me out of it. Said, no, do the hardest car and let it be in there, and that'll be you and Buddy is 2, and Cale and you. So I said, okay, that sounds right.
Yeah, I was going to say that I know you wanted that one first, and the NASCAR Hall of Fame kind of changed that deal, and I'm glad we had the other one there for you. That was a lot of fun. And if I haven't thanked you enough, Tiff and I had the best time at the induction ceremony with you and your family. Just wonderful people. We loved it, had a blast, and you got to stop by more. We hadn't seen you in a while.
Well, I'm retired, and I'm more busy now than I've been.
It seems to
Around
be
the
a
house, and the
common
honeydew
theme.
list, and all that's going on. So.
Most real racers I know tend to fail at retirement.
That's been the biggest struggle I've ever went through. Because I've worked all my life. So what do you do when you just get over a corner and sit down?
You don't.
Yep. Yep. That's my wife and I talk about that every now and then. She's like, "What are you going to do when you're done with this?" I'm like, "I don't know, but it's got to be something."
It'll be something with your
There
ships.
ain't no way you could sit down either.
Yeah.
No, you're geared. You're not geared for that.
Yep, exactly. Which is good. I like I said, like I told them earlier, I still love building. I'm still hands-on every day in the shop. If you put me behind a desk, I probably wouldn't make it.
Well, anyway, the Gray Ghost was always my favorite car because there was so much history behind that, and it got the name Gray Ghost because of, on Saturday practice, Buddy was out there running, passing a lot of cars, and people didn't see him coming up on them, and it scared them. So NASCAR came up, and we painted the lower air dam day glow on it, so they could see it coming.
That's a great story. Yeah.
I remember one of the things that I was really impressed with when you and I were talking about that car, when you talked about when you guys hung the body on that car and everybody at Daytona was trying to, get the front end down, and they were dropping the hoods down and trying to cheat the template a little bit. And you, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you put the hood and the windshield angle basically at factory because you figured they had done more cowl research than anyone else. And
I don't know if they done any of that, but I had done a lot of it. And on other cars, at Daytona and Talladega, before that, I went to work on that car. Because I remember the end of the season, I said, well, nobody can't tell me I can't do this and I can't do that, so I got a free hand to do whatever I want to do with that. So, and that was one of the things I seen everybody killing, shooting themselves in the foot the way they was hanging the body on. And Bud Moore was one of the worst. He just pulled the hood way down, and then it was really killed the cow pressure. But unless you put gauges on it, you'd never know that. But, you know, that car was, I don't know, the way it run that day was unbelievable.
Oh, that was one of my favorite stories of yours. That and the one when you first got started, you said you'd go look at the Gatorade streaks down the side of the car. I believe it was Pearson, you said, would throw his cup of Gatorade out as he'd leave pit road, and at the end of the race, you could see the orange streaks down the side and see what the air was doing.
Ah.
Yeah,
It would tell you exactly where air was going and where it was swirling or what it was doing, and you know that you could put vortex in, take vortex out, and change flow of air, and you know it's amazing. And then you could also Big Wing is where the car was sandblasted, and that would tell you a lot.
Yep.
But it was a lot of things that you could do because it wasn't just horsepower; it was rolling resistance and aerodynamics and horsepower. But then you had to have a driver to make it work.
It was the good days. It's still good, but it was. No offense to what they got now, but I tell people, I like what NASCAR is, but I really love what it was. And I think you guys came along in again, no offense to NASCAR, but you guys came along in the greatest era. That was the best.
We did. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
It was. You didn't have your hands on it. It's like John Holman. When I went to work for him in '63, and I was with him for 10 years before I left. And he'd put that big old finger of his in my chest and say, Waddell, if you get caught cheating, I'll fire you. He said, you guys are good enough to win races without cheating. Well, there was so many areas you could work on that NASCAR had never even thought about because the mechanics is a little bit ahead of the NASCAR inspectors. So that, you could do things and it's still in the rule book. It wasn't illegal. Nothing illegal about it. So, there's a lot of things that you could do to a race car to make it better as long as you understood what you're doing and then don't get out in left field with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the fun times.
Oh, yeah, it was the fun time.
Hey, Waddell, I talked to you a couple of days ago, and I was telling you that Mike Hill, my buddy, had called and said that he was telling me a story he had heard from some of the other guys that worked with you at Holman and Moody that you were pushing that big block forward on the engine stand, and it fell out. The pin wasn't in, and it fell out on the floor. And what did you do with that?
It's the first time many years ago that happened in probably '63 or '64. It had to be back then when I first went to work for Holman Moody, and I was pushing it the wrong way, and it was a big block 427 Ford engine, and it had a boilerplate bolted to the back of it with a tube that fit into the stand, and I shouldn't have been pushing with it, and we always had the tube oil grease on it so you could rotate the engine. If you're working on the bottom side, top side, whatever. While I was pushing, it just slid out on the floor. Bang! It went. Golly, it scared me to death. I just reached down, never asked nobody to help me. I just reached down and picked up that old 427 block. And the main thing is I don't know how I done it this day. How to hold that stand to where I could stick it back in the hole.
It was called adrenaline.
Thinking about doing that, I mean, that's crazy.
Yes, it is. Yeah, he also added that you were pretty stout back then, of course.
But I didn't know that anybody ever went and sold anything about it because that, honest to goodness, that happened that long ago, and it's the first time I've heard anybody say anything about it.
He was hoping nobody knew.
There were people watching that I wasn't aware of. Well, it made a noise. I mean, everybody in the engine room knew it happened.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. So you probably had some adrenaline going, too. You're like, I got to get this back in there. And
it scared me to death what happened.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's probably deals, too, where they were watching you, even if you didn't know it. Like when you went to lunch and you come back and figured out they told you that you did everything perfect, so they couldn't find nothing you were doing wrong.
Yeah, this guy Hard Rock came to me 3 or 4 years ago to the Hall of Fame and looked me up and he said, I got to tell you the rest of your story. And he knew I didn't know about it. And he said every time you'd go to lunch or break, they was going over everything you were doing, try to find something wrong with it so they get rid of it, because that's the reason they put you in the engine room to start with. Because I was, when I went in to work it was on a Wednesday morning, or a Thursday morning, I was surprised that they put me in the engine room. They know nothing about me. John Holman did, but they didn't. Well, I told him my history. But anyway, they stuck me in there, and I survived. Thank the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, you did very, very, very good. You're a Hall of Famer, too.
That's what I was
so,
going
I
to
mean,
say.
gosh.
He survived all the way to the
Yeah.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Not to mention all the other awards, but definitely a legend.
Well, it's been quite a ride. I think about it, Don, and I don't know if I'd have put myself through it again because, my wife sacrificed. She raised the kids. I was gone so much of the time, with them race cars because I was always on a race car. I had to work on the weekends. So, later on, my wife was able to go with me. But then by then, the kids was, out of school. They were on their own. So, but anyway, it was tough. My hat's off to her.
Yeah.
I try to explain to some of these young kids now that I came along a lot later, but I still was in that last era of when you went racing, NASCAR racing. It wasn't a 5-day job. I don't. To this day, I don't know what a Friday evening feels like to normal folks that plan a weekend. Or Saturday or Sunday. Sunday we go in and we get organized and clean up and do paperwork. If there's not, this morning even a holiday, I pulled a motor out and got another motor assembled ready to set in, and it's just because we're going to get that much further ahead by tomorrow, and that's the world that he came from, and it's it's not so much now, but yeah, that was it was a lifestyle, not a job.
Yeah, John Holman wanted to keep us on that clock. I can remember we won Michigan, go all night, got back about noon the next day, and walked in the shop, and Holman looked at us, and you boys just going to work half a day? He's ready for us to get back on the clock and get at it. I'll never get him saying that. I don't know how I made it driving through the night by myself all the way.
Well, Mr. Bill Blair wants you to tell us about your knee replacement and going back to work the next day.
Well, it wasn't the next day. I had my left knee replaced on a Thursday, and Monday morning I was back to work. And the right one I had it replaced, and it was almost as good too. I didn't have any trouble, but whenever I had my right shoulder replaced, what they call reverse surgery. Now that was tough because a friend of mine told me, said the best friend you're going to have is your recliner, and he was right because I could not sleep in a bed for like a week or so. Yeah, that shoulder surgery is tough.
Yeah, David's had it done.
Yeah, I've had both shoulders, and then that physical therapy afterwards was what was really hard. And then I had my knee worked on too. So, Waddell, how many hours what's the most hours you worked in a week?
Well, I know over 150 one time at Daytona. We went to Daytona in the 24-hour race, and they never run you out of the garage down there. We had showed up on Monday morning, and Wednesday afternoon is the first time we'd seen a bed, that Wednesday night that week. And then had to work, still had to work at night. And then drove all the way home, on top of that, the weekend. So that, I know it was 150 some hours. I don't remember exactly this time, but I just about worked around the clock that whole week.
Yep, that's crazy.
So that these people realize how much work that is. I believe there's only 162 hours in a week. Okay.
So he worked 8 days.
It felt like I'd worked 200.
Yeah. 8 days a week.
Yeah, I remember certain deals like that when I worked for Ricky Craven. As long as what I figured out, as long as you make it through the third night with no sleep, and that next morning you wake up, or the next morning you kind of feel sick to your stomach, and you're just beat by the third day. If you make it through that little couple-hour spell of not feeling good, you're good for another couple days. We did that several times at Ricky Craven's, and it's like, okay, in 3 days I won't feel good, but then I'll be all right for 2 more days.
Right.
And we'll get to the racetrack. Yep.
What did we pick such a profession,
Yep.
Wow. Glutton for punishment. Well, but if you wanted a challenge, that was a thing to get into.
Well, and that's what I tell people. It hasn't been an easy ride, but it's been a really cool one.
Oh, yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Man,
Yep.
If you can hang in there and make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, hey, Waddell, thank you so much for calling. Do you want to tell
All
him,
right.
tell him Bill
Guys.
anything in particular? You got any Bill Rhine stories?
No, he's just one of the nicest.
Or any?
In his life, two of the nicest people I ever run up on.
Oh,
I've run up a lot of people, very super people.
yeah.
Well, we appreciate it, and we feel the same about you and your family. And come see us. We're always at the
Okay,
shop.
I will.
Awesome.
Promise.
All right, Waddell. Have a great one.
Take care. See you guys.
Thank you. Talk to you
Good
later.
evening.
Bye-bye. All right, Mr. Waddell Wilson, legend, Hall of Famer, and all that stuff. All
Really
these
cool
awards.
guy, yeah.
I've actually got one of his postcards over there. Could have grabbed it and read some of his specs, but yeah.
I think during his career, he was one of the most underrated guys.
Mm-hmm.
You really didn't, when you sit back and look at all the stats of poles and wins and different drivers and everybody that he won races with, I mean, he's amazing. His whole career is unbelievable.
That's why he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yes. And from engine building to crew chiefing to, I mean, he hit every spot. He wasn't just the crew chief or wasn't just the great engine builder. He was the great everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I'm most impressed with about him.
It's his career highlights. He has built engines that awarded 109 NASCAR race wins, 123 NASCAR poles, 3 NASCAR championships, David Pearson and Benny Parsons. David Pearson 2 in 68, 69. Benny Parsons 73, won Daytona 500 3 times as a crew chief and engine builder, and won the Daytona 500 7 times as an engine builder. And first engine builder to be crew chief engine builder that went over 200 mile an hour in NASCAR Daytona Talladega. And that was also the tracks that people feared him was the big tracks like that too, with the ones that's where the short horsepower showed up.
Yep.
For sure. And he's inducted into the Nashville Auto Diesel College Graduate Hall of Fame in '87 and the National Association of Trade and Technical. Sometimes my brain gets ahead of my mouth, or strike that, reverse it. Golden Wrench Award by the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame. Inducted National Motorsports Press. Oh, yes, it keeps going. It's just amazing. So it's been a really good show. A lot of information, a lot of great stories.
Yep.
That's what we love to hear. I know you're the same way. You love the past. It's like you say. I want you to say it again, because I know Bill Blair told me that you're going to say this, and I actually meant to put it in my notes, so I made sure we didn't forget. But say it again.
That I like what NASCAR is, but I love what NASCAR was.
That's it.
And I've actually told people during our tours and stuff and some of our deals, like the Waddell Wilsons and the Will Cronkrites, I kind of wish I had come along 20 years earlier,
Right,
to experience that live, because with the collection we have of older cars, and a lot of the older gentlemen will come by to see hey, we heard you had one of, my old cars. And actually, I guess it was 3 weeks ago now, Dr. Benfield stopped by. We have one of the 98 Levi Garrett cars in the collection. And when he first got to the shop, he didn't say a whole lot. He was kind of just quiet. Just
taking it all in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we do the shop tour, and then we take him out to the farm, and he sees his old car at the farm, and we start talking. For the next 3 hours, he told stories of the old racing days, and it was so cool to see him, all that stuff that's gone and forgotten comes rolling back in. And, we did it for him to go show him the cool old car we restored of his. But it ended up being something really cool for us because, man, we got all these great stories. And when we finally got done at the farm, we went back to the shop, and we chit-chatted for another, half an hour. And he shook my hand when he left, and he said, Bill, he says, I haven't had this much fun in a long time. And that just that means the world to you.
You helped him bring back all those memories.
And that's what the collection is for.
Yep.
It's not just to have cars sit in a building. It's for guys like that. For Will, Will got involved with the restoration of his old car. Dr. Benfield coming by. I know you had talked about something we did with Junior years ago that I'll tell the listeners about. We restored an old 1986 Budweiser Aero Coupe, and through a friend that we know, we kind of set up this deal to surprise Junior Johnson. He was still up at the farm in Wilkesboro, and we said, we want to take this thing and drive it up the driveway at breakfast.
Yeah.
and park it out front and just come in for breakfast. You know, how fun would that be to surprise Junior?
Right.
It was before. It was dark still.
Yes, it was. Well, the problem was when we unloaded the car out by the road to drive it up the driveway, it was like 29 degrees. And it wasn't going to start if we wanted it to. So we hooked it to a truck and towed it up the driveway and just rolled it up out front. And, you know, we did it to do a cool thing for Junior. But it backfired on us because my entire crew of guys got to eat breakfast at Junior's one time before they sold the farm. I think they sold the farm 3 months later, and it was over forever. And there's this, you know, anybody that's been in racing for a while knows that breakfast at Junior's was a big deal. Yeah. And happened for this you know, big long span, and it was great.
I've heard Mike Hill talk about that, you know, how good it was.
It was. Yeah. It was. And Junior sat down with us, and he told some stories, and it was just, man, it turned out to be the coolest morning for us, and we meant it to be for him.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
But that was something I'll always remember as well. That was another one of those really cool deals.
I'm sure. Hospitality that Junior had.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, Mike Hill, he lives in one of Junior's old houses up there. So one of these days I want to go up there and visit at least part of the old farm.
Yeah.
You know, and that was a house that whenever Mike was working for Junior and he couldn't, Junior said, you know, it won't seem to move up to that house. And he's like, I can't afford that house. And he's like, don't worry about it. Just move into it. We'll figure it out later. So he ended up living there. Still
That's
does.
cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Who else can say they live in one of Junior's old houses, you know? I mean, shoot. I'd love to. I'm going to have to talk to Mike, get a little bit closer to him, put me in his wheel or something. I don't know. Anyway, he's another good one.
Do you have any good projects coming up soon?
We just started a mechanical restoration of Rusty Wallace's car, Midnight. Penske had restored it for him for museum purposes, so the drivetrain is not complete. But it's beautiful. They did a beautiful job with what they did, and I guess Rusty's decided it may be fun to do maybe a Goodwood or some of these cool historic events. So we picked up that last Tuesday, and that's in the shop getting started now. We're finishing up a 1984 IROC Camaro. Just doing some body hanging and some chassis fab on it. That was, if you run the serial number, it was the 1984 Bobby Ray Hall Mid-Ohio winning car. That's for a client in Kentucky. Finishing up the 2013 Jeff Gordon road course car. That's heading out the door. Did a really neat car. We did some chassis work on a Roy Tyner late 60s Pontiac Grand Prix big block car. Really cool piece. Finished that up a couple weeks ago. There's all kinds of stuff going on.
Sounds like it.
And I've got to apologize to everybody. We get comments all the time that we don't post enough on Facebook. I know. We had a great Medal of Honor dinner, and I didn't take one picture. I was so busy the whole night, I didn't take any photographs, and I'm bad about that. I need to get better at posting some stuff for everybody, and I will work on that, I promise, everybody listening.
All right, so Dargan wants to say, tell Bill that the tribute car he built for Dink Widenhouse was a huge hit at the historic North Turn Parade in February in Ponce de Leon, Florida.
So that car was built in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Davita, his daughter, came to us and said, you know, I want my dad to go down and run the Daytona Beach Parade. You know, we want to do this and this and this. I've got this car. And by the time they were able to secure it and get it to us, it was 2 weeks before they had to leave. And we called in. I tell people I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I just have to have his phone number. We called in a bunch of people to help put this thing together in 2 weeks so they could get down there and run the beach parade. And we pulled it off. And it's not our prettiest restoration, but it's a really cool, tribute car for what Dink used to run. And another cool thing, when we surprised Dink, when we brought him out to the shop and showed him the car for the first time, he didn't say anything, and he quietly walked up to this thing, and he touches it, and then he starts walking around it, running his hand over it like a damn fighter jet pilot. You know, just feeling everything and walking around it, and he climbs in it, and he's getting comfortable, and I'm like, this is so cool. This is he's it's all coming back, and we were going to drive it outside for him, and his daughter said, well, Daddy, you can go ahead and jump out and let these guys drive it outside. And Dink looked at her, and he said, well, I'm already sitting in it. I'll drive it outside. And he fired it up, and out the door he went with it. And then he started telling stories, and, man, he has some of the greatest stories from when he used to race. And that whole family is just, again, just fantastic people. That was another really, really cool. That one scared me a little bit. I was afraid we weren't going to get it done. We had some... the motor that came with the car had a cracked block, so we did a quick, fire it up in the floor to see how the oil is, and the oil turned milky right away, and it's like, okay, that's no good. Throw that out. Let's find another one. But we were able to pull it off, and super glad we did for a really great racer and a great family.
Yeah, that's the same race we went to, right? The parade we
It
went
is.
to.
He was there driving that. We had he brought that up to Wilkesboro, North Wilkesboro too, a couple of weeks ago when we were there on a Wednesday. And then I saw Dink again. I don't think he has a car, though, because the autograph thing Friday, I believe it was, me and Bryce and I went over there at Morrison Museum.
Have you ever done any late 90s, early 2000s Cup cars?
Yes. It's not my favorite era of Cup cars. We did a 97 John Deere car we helped a gentleman in Florida with. Let's see, I restored a 2001 Jeff Gordon Daytona 500 car that I bought from Hendrick Used Parts. That's actually a funny story. I saw the car in used parts, and I wanted to buy it to restore two of my other Hendrick cars that I have, and they wouldn't sell it to me because it was for internal sale only. You had to be an employee to bid on it. So I ran up the hill to the machine shop and grabbed one of my friends, and I said, go down there and bid on that car. I really need to get that car. I want to park that thing out and finish my other couple. And when we ended up winning the bid and getting the car, when we found that it was Gordon's 500 car and that was Jimmy's backup in 02, and then Kyle Busch ran it in ARC, I'm like, you know what, that's a cool car. We should just put that back together and just, so we did. It's in the collection right now. And so yes, we do late 90s, early 2000s. There's really not anything I would say we haven't done. I'm not a big fan of restoring stuff from the mid to late 60s because I need to learn more in that era. There's a lot of that. That takes me a little bit longer than it would take somebody else who does it all the time. But it's all just, learning and doing. So
yeah. What about the two car, the Rod Osterlund car that I believe Tracy's dad worked on?
I used to call it ostrich.
Yeah, I know it is a little bit tough to
Dad
say
used to
that.
work for ostrich.
Ostrich, yes. But that car was a rare one, and you were on the phone with someone, and you hung up and called the other person.
Yes, that was so that car, a gentleman in Anaheim, California, called and said he had this car that his dad bought from Osterlund, and it was this old Dale Earnhardt car. And I was like, everybody that calls me owns a Davy or a Dale Earnhardt car, so I'll take your information. But I wasn't. I just was very skeptical. And he mentioned the story that Boobie Harrington had sold this car to his dad when he was at Osterlund. And so at the time, Boobie was working over in Huntersville. So I'm like, you know what? I'll call him. So I called him up on the phone and said, hey, did you ever sell a car to this guy in Anaheim, California? And he said, yeah, oh my gosh. He says, does he still have it? That was one of those Osterlund cars. That was an Earnhardt Pontiac. And I'm like, Boop, you're breaking up. I'll call you back. And I hung the phone up. And I called the kid back. I'm like, you know what? I believe you. I'll wire you the money and send somebody out to get it. And I'll tell you another cool story about that car. When we got the car to our shop, because it had been indoors its whole life, it wasn't rusted very bad at all. I mean, there was virtually a little bit of rust in the fuel cell can and nowhere else on the car. And I had a couple crew members come by to look at it. And Marv Acton, another good fabricator, was one of the fabricators on the Osterlund deal. And in the trunk was this box with these brake ducts. They're triangle-shaped brake coolers that had this, looked like a ram's horn coming off the side, kind of curved around the sidewall of the tire. And I remember Marv looking at the car and looking at the car and looking at the car, and he stopped when he got to the trunk, and he pulled one of those out, and he says, oh, my God, Bill, I built these.
Oh.
Dale Inman wanted these damn things, and I remember building these. And he went into stories about, building stuff, and it was like, wow, that's we had I think 4 or 5 original crew members verified that car for us and signed the dash, and that is one of my favorites.
One of your prizes.
It's a neat piece, yeah. Yeah, super cool car.
So that's one of the neat things that you do. You make sure if you have a question about the piece, you'll even get with the person that built it originally and make sure that it's correct.
Yeah, we try to be perfect. We're not perfect, but we try to be.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the other reason why I'm not big on restoring the cars from the 60s, because most of those gentlemen have passed away, and I can't go talk to them about how this or that was done correctly.
Right.
I like the late 70s into the 80s. You know, that's kind of the stuff I really enjoy collecting. But thank goodness those gentlemen are still here and still eager to tell stories about their cool race cars and what they did. And, you know, that's, again, another really cool bonus of what we do.
Yeah. Did you read the comment about the pancakes?
I was getting ready to.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Chris Glover says, ask Bill about his pancakes at track day. My dad says they are the best. And I'll add a comment to that. We got your pancakes left over the next day.
Oh,
and I
yeah,
have to say they were good, but I want to try them fresh next time.
Oh, that's so when we do we do track days 3-4 times a year. It's a very limited group of 6 to 10 cars. We rent Kershaw for the whole day, which is a fantastic road course to test about anything with wheels and tires. It's a great little place. They're great people. We privately rent the track. We serve breakfast and lunch at our track day, so everybody can just come down and enjoy the day. And we make my shaved chocolate pancakes for breakfast. And that's, ask Will Cronkrite about the shaved chocolate pancakes. They're his favorite too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we enjoyed ourselves, but I
Well,
didn't get the fresh pancakes because we were late.
Yeah, we took them home, and I ended up eating a couple of
You
them the
left
next
me
morning. Yeah, so I left her some, but
left me too.
I think I put them in the microwave and heated them up. So
They're
Bill
better
actually-
fresh.
He actually packed them up for us.
Yep.
yeah,
We have fun at our track days. We have a great group of guys that come race with us and just run, and it's good fun.
We enjoyed it.
Yep.
We did enjoy it, and
Yeah.
we thank you for the invite.
Will Cronkite doesn't miss one.
Okay.
He does not miss one.
Is it cool? Well, there's food and there's entertainment, and
Yes.
he loves the race cars.
And racing.
Yes.
So there's all those things into one. Yes. Do you, speaking of food, do you ever have any green beans?
No, and that somebody threw me a curve there.
Yes.
No, that is the one thing I won't eat is green beans.
Yeah.
I don't care how good your grandma's recipe is. I won't eat green beans.
What's the reason?
Not even in a
I
casserole?
just won't. I'll eat house cat again before I'll eat green beans. When I lived in Florida, the
Again?
Haitians we worked with
Yes.
fixed a really mean house cat, and it was I didn't know what it was at the time, but it was good, and I'll have that again before I'll eat green beans.
So what does house
that's
cat
funny.
taste like?
Whatever
don't say
sauce it's
chicken.
cooked in.
Chicken.
Yeah,
It was
chicken, like
little
tofu.
tiny pink pieces of meat in a Caribbean jerk sauce over angel hair pasta, and this gentleman Piete's wife made it as a snack for everybody on the crew when I was down there, and it was great.
I'm just
Interesting.
wondering what a house cat is too. Is it like a cat
Meow.
cat?
Meow.
It's like a cat cat
You
that lives
know.
in your house.
Yep.
Calls it litter box. Did
Yes.
the whole deal.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Who else can say that? Take
Who
every-
else can say?
Lots of people that are from South Miami, I would imagine.
Oh yes, that's true. I'd say. And do you have any Lula Rosa stories?
Oh, I love Luke. Golly, what a hoot. That's another one you need to get on the show.
Yeah.
He is absolutely fantastic. He's
Good one, too.
assisted us in verifying 2 of our cars. His stories are just amazing, and one of the coolest guys you ever want to meet. He still remembers everything. He's very entertaining. His stories are just a blast. Good guy. I think he's like officially retired now. He's not teaching up at the school anymore in Martinsville or in that area. So he may be one that you could grab a hold of, because your fans would love him on the show.
Yeah, we'll
He's
have to
fantastic.
work on that. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to get in touch with Mr. Bill Rhine, send him a text or.
Yeah. No, we don't get text messages.
Yeah.
I still operate with a flip phone, and we do it old school. You got to call or send an email.
Yeah.
We do check the emails at least once a day.
Yes, that's right.
Depending on
he
how
does.
busy you are.
Yeah.
He does. Sometimes I'll call the shop, and then what's the secretary's name?
My wife, Tiffany's the secretary. Yeah, she
Oh,
runs
is
the
she?
office. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Mhm. No, that's all right.
And I was just telling Bill, Bill Blair this morning. I hadn't met his wife yet, or something like that. Oh well, I guess I should have just said introduce myself. I probably have and just didn't think about
That's
it.
all right.
You know, when I get in your shop, it's like sensory overload. I mean, you
Very
know,
much so.
from the time I walk in the door and you see all those the coins.
Oh yeah, from our military nonprofit. Yep.
Yeah, that and your collection there, and then it just starts from there. It's like wow. So, But you know what? You have a website too. So, but where's the best place for people to go on and see? They got to see these aircraft carriers, and you have all the little airplanes that you put on them. Tell us about that.
So part of the deal with a nonprofit. So our main nonprofit is Military Pit Crew Challenge, and I guess 7 years before COVID hit, we started doing an event on the West Coast with Fleet Week and Speed Fest out in San Diego. And we basically take 4 cars and 5 complete sets of pit equipment, the real one-pump jacks, the nitrogen-powered guns, the whole deal. And we teach up to 40 teams of 10 military personnel to do NASCAR stops, real cars, real equipment. And then we have a competition for prizes and awards and plaques and stuff. And it is, I'll put it to you this way, the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations said it was the best morale-boosting team-building exercise he's ever seen.
Sure.
Gets them outside of their element.
It is, and the competition level between the different squadrons and commands, oh my goodness, they get going. It's that literally was my vacation every year, going out there for 2 weeks and training, and it's a busy 2 weeks, but man, we had the best fun. It was the greatest time, and unfortunately the event got the Speed Fest got killed, but we've been invited to Pensacola. At one time, the Air Force wanted to consider taking us to the Joint NATO base in Naples, Italy. Kathy Fitch at the time, who was head of MWR Worldwide, was wondering how we could box all this up in containers and take it to Guam and Japan and do the bases over there. And, my wife and I currently self-fund most of it. So that was Guam and Japan were out of the question.
Yes, a little pricey.
We invent and we execute and we make the program happen. I'm not the sponsor guy. I'm not a money beggar. That's just not. But the program is epic, and through that program we started the Little Wooden Aircraft Carrier program, which is what you saw at the dinner. We build these little 4-foot long wooden carriers. We do 5 different carrier decks and an amphib, and we've met so many really cool Marine and Navy families that when one of the families gets put on our list, we'll build whatever ship was important to mom, dad, or grandpa. And if they flew for a certain squadron, we'll paint those tail markings on the planes. Each ship gets sent out with 18 to 22 aircraft on it. And I've got retired vice admirals that display them in their offices at their house, and I have other soldiers and sailors who let their kids play with them. And it's turned into a really cool little deal. Yeah.
And one of them's used in training.
Oh yeah, the one we sent to England. Yeah, we actually sent one to Lord Michael Dobbs, who's a friend of ours, and he had it hanging in his Parliament office. We did the QE2 for him when the QE2 first came out. We sent him one, and he hung it in his office. And then I get an email from him, 3 or 4 months later, and he says, I hope you don't mind, but a friend of mine from the Naval Training Institute came by, and he saw your battleship. He calls it the battleship. He saw your battleship and said what a great training tool that would make for the new recruit to learn how to arraign the flight deck. He's like, so please don't be upset, but I gave it to him.
Oh.
And I sent him an email back, says, I think that's wonderful. I didn't know we were qualified to build training tools for the Queen's Navy, but that's great. Yay. So we've got stuff everywhere. We got little wooden ships everywhere, and we've got the big metal ships, the first big metal ship we did, which we'll have to post some pictures of that. We haven't. We'll have to post some pictures of that on the Facebook page. The first metal ship is currently on loan to the National Naval Aviation Museum. It's a 9-foot long, 500-pound all-steel version of the USS Macon Island. And that was another deal through that event we do in San Diego. We met Captain Cedric Pringle years ago. He was the first CO when she was brand new. Super cool guy. We hit it off when he was introduced to us, and my guys got a tour of the ship, and they were just great. And I remember on the flight home from that first event in Coronado, I told my wife, when we get home, I'm going to build a model of that ship. And she's like, you go ahead and do that, thinking I'm going to build, a 2-foot long model. Yeah. No. 5 years later, it was 9 feet long, 500 pounds, 1/100 scale, all steel Macon Island.
It took 9 years to make it.
It took 3.5 months over 5 years, because we'd work on it for a day or two, then you wouldn't touch it for a month, and then so we I love those things. That's I tell people this sometimes. The best thing that ever happened to me when I was a kid is I never got what I wanted.
Right.
I want that toy. Well, no, you can't have it. Well, then I'll go build it, And when I was a kid, if I wasn't cutting plywood up in the backyard or trying to stack cinder blocks together to make something, but that's where it all started. So now I build my toys.
Gosh.
You know,
How about that? Let that be a lesson to everybody out there. Don't buy your kids toys.
great, they're all gonna hate me.
You're saving money and you're making them be creative and learn how to do stuff on their own. People don't realize that when he talks about models, he means like
Big, as
They're
big
big,
as this desk.
Yeah.
they're big.
As big as this
Go
desk.
big or go home. But yes,
why
they
not?
are.
If you don't,
Yes.
if you did it wrong, if you don't have to move it with a forklift.
Yes.
So what does Tiffany say about all of your
She
creativeness?
She is pretty. You know, it's funny. My wife is amazing because she's tolerated the collection and the company and the building and the growing and you know, the company takes a lot of our time. And I have so many people when they come see the collection for the first time and we talk about doing work for them on their car or something. They're like, "Can I meet your wife? How's your wife let this happen? Because I need your wife to meet my wife. Can your wife talk to my wife?" And I'm like, yeah, well, no, my wife's a saint, and she is. She's honestly a lot of the reason why this can happen. You know, because you can't work 15, 18 hours a day unless you got somebody that's okay with it.
Exactly.
You know, and it's funny sometimes when I'll sit at home on a Sunday trying to take a relaxing day, and by the half hour sitting there watching TV with her, I'll start fidgeting, and she's like, "Do you want to go to work and build something?" "Yes, please." And out the door I go, and then I build, work on the wood metal ship or whatever. And so she's super, super tolerant with
She
all
knows
that.
where your dedication lies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's
That's important.
She helps you too, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
with the office type
Yeah,
stuff.
because I
and
hate the office stuff.
Yeah.
I hate office stuff.
takes a lot of time, and it's
And she's good at that, so let her run that and make it happen.
yeah,
Yep.
that's nice.
Yep.
Well, all right. And then somebody mentioned that they can send you a fax. Wesley Parker says send a fax. So
We might still have a fax machine. I have to look in the other office. We might still have one.
yes, I know you do. You do answer emails. I think like once a day or something. You
Yeah.
go in there and see, or maybe a few times a day,
Yeah.
whatever. But whenever you're taking a break or
If
or
people
whatever.
want to call us or email us, just be patient with us because we are very busy. And we do try to get back to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had people call us and chit-chat with us about cars they're interested in buying that aren't even buying cars from us. I really mean it when I say I'd rather discuss something with somebody and make sure they're not making the wrong decision or buying the wrong car. Because, to some people, $1 million car is a great toy. To other people, a $10,000 car is a great toy. And there's room for everybody. There's a market for all that. But you don't want the guy with a $10,000 budget buying something he was told was something else, and then he gets a bad taste in his mouth when
Right.
so I don't mind that. It does take up a lot of time, and it is, you waste a lot of time, but it's good. It's good for the industry. It's good for the market, and I mean, I can tell you of 4 instances in the last month where we've talked to people about cars that weren't buying cars from us. Just to make sure they were making the right decision. Hey, just send me the pictures. Let me look at it. Hey, that car is junk because of this and this and this and this reasons. That's not safe.
Right.
And here's why. And so I don't mind that because I want them to enjoy. If you're going to spend 10 grand and that's all you got, it might as well be all the money in the world. Buy what you get your money's worth, and then go have a good time with it.
Tiffany Rhine. Folks can reach Rhine Enterprises through Facebook.
So she was the kind lady that gave me the shop number.
Yes.
Yes. She says she answers all those messages. So.
She did good. Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah.
And she does answer the Facebook stuff. I'm really bad. I don't think I've seen my Facebook page in 3.5 years. I hear it's great, but I don't have time.
Well, that's
so
how I
don't-
found you.
But Tiffany pulls, she pulls stuff and she'll write notes and put them on my desk or forward emails to, Facebook message to my email. And she's like, you need to respond to this. You need to,
Gotcha.
Okay, I will. She keeps after me.
Good.
That's
Yes.
good. That would be a
Yes.
huge help.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. Thank y'all for tuning in, and y'all can go back on here after the video's over and ask any questions, and we'll make sure they get answered. And also hit that thumbs up if you liked it. If you didn't, just hit it twice. That works because it goes back to the same thing. So anyway, I can't imagine anybody doing that. So, all right. Well, y'all have a great week and enjoy the rest of your day off because tomorrow I'll be back to work. But for some of us, it's work every day. So anyway, first and foremost, thank you for coming in.
No, I loved it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a blast. I love the stories, and every time I'm around you, it's always inspirational and happy. Because you inspire me. You inspire me because there's times where I get too many things going on, and just really need to learn to focus in. So
Bring it in.
maybe some of that will rub off on me a little bit. So, all right. Well, we'll
One
see y'all
project
next
at
week.
a time.
Yeah. Y'all have a great week. We'll see you next time.